Thanks for tuning in to the Drive On podcast, where we are focused on giving hope and strength to the entire military community. Whether you're a veteran, active duty, guard, reserve, or a family member, this podcast will share inspirational stories and resources that are useful to you. I'm your host, Scott DeLucio, and now let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, today my guest is Christian Lopez. Christian served in the 3rd Ranger Battalion and had his own eventful transition out of the military, which between his time in the military and his transition out has led him to where he is now with his company American Savage and his mission to serve veterans. So welcome to the show, Christian. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background?
Thanks, Scott. Thanks for having me. My name's Christian. I was in 3rd Ranger Battalion from 2007 to 2011. What prompted me to basically join the military, I didn't have a military background per se, as far as my family goes or anything of that nature. I lost a scholarship to play football. So I got an injury, tried to bounce back from the injury, wanted to kind of continue on that path where, I felt like I was doing something or I felt good about myself, in a team-oriented environment. And that's what led me to the military. I had a rough start from the beginning. I grew up in Southern California. So, and being in Georgia, Fort Benning, wasn't acclimated to the heat down there. And in July of 2007, I had a heat stroke. My temperature was almost 108 degrees.
Wow. And
liver, kidney failure, hospitalized for a couple of days, the whole bit. And then I was supposed to be getting out of the military from that. So I basically fought to stay in when that happened. I was just dead set in that. I'd already lost a scholarship to play football. And I was like, I'm not losing this. I want to be a Ranger. I'm going to be a Ranger. And I pretty much begged to stay in. And, at the time it was the Ranger indoctrination program, which we called RIP. And they let me come back. So I went back again. This happened in July 2007. I came back in October. I passed it. And then I went on to serve the remainder of my enlisted contract, my 4.5 years with 3rd Ranger Battalion.
Yeah, awesome. And so that process that you went through, the Ranger indoctrination program is basically like your way of getting into the Ranger Battalion. At that point, is that right?
Yeah.
So that had to be kind of mentally challenging. Overcoming that setback with the heat stroke, and then trying to get back into that and doing that. Were you doubting yourself, like maybe I'm not cut out for this kind of thing, or what was going through your mind at that point?
Of course. Up until that injury I had playing football, I'd never really experienced like a failure.
Mm-hmm.
That was that was me, right? I remember that first initial feeling where it was like, I felt weak, am I not as good as I think I am? Or, I didn't know what to think really. It was just I couldn't bounce back from it. And then when that happened, I didn't even see it coming. It wasn't anything that I probably could have prevented. But I remember feeling really weak at the time again. And I felt like I'm not accepting this failure, or, I took it as a failure, and I did feel weak from it. And I just remember I was like, I'm not going to stop until I get through this.
Right.
So that was a major, mental barrier to overcome, where I just locked it in my mind. I was like, I don't care I already kind of saw what they had me do, it put me into the hospital. So I kind of had an idea what to expect. But I was like, I'm going to go through. I'm going to do it again. And I'll do whatever it takes to get my scroll. That's basically what my way of thinking was.
Yeah. And I, from what I know from other people, I didn't go through, RIP or anything like that. But from what I know of other people who were who have gone through like Navy SEAL training or other, kind of more intense training like that, you kind of have to just have that mindset of I'm not going to fail. Like no matter what, I'm going to keep going and I'm going to keep doing this, and no matter what, I'm going to just keep going. And I've talked to people who've had, completed stuff on, with either broken limbs or, whatever. And they just, they just keep going and they don't stop,
Yeah, that's that. I think what I learned there, I think the biggest takeaway I learned there was when you want to quit, you don't realize really how much you're more capable of going through. So when that feeling, when something like, oh, this is hard, or like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, when you can set that aside and just keep going,
mm-hmm.
you'd amaze yourself at what you're actually able to do. So, that's what I did when I ran myself into that heat stroke. So I remember, it was a 10-mile run, and after the first 5 miles, I was dead. It was 105 degrees at 7 a.m. So I remember being like, oh my God, I'm so glad that's over. And they said, turn around, we're doing it again. And I was like, there's no way, in my head, I was like, there's no way that we're actually going to be doing it again. And if, they're just trying to make more people quit or whatever, that's kind of what I had kind of thought about it. And we did it again. And I remember every step on the way, I was like, okay, when are they going to say like, all right, you guys are done? And that step never came. So, I just basically just locked it in my mind and was like, just keep putting one foot in front of the other until you finish.
Yeah, exactly.
I did finish, and then that's when I collapsed. So, I mean,
there's I forget who said it now, and this is going to drive me nuts to try to remember the guy's name, but anyways, they came up with this theory. They called it a 40% rule. Like when you're ready to quit, when your body tells you that you're ready to quit, when your mind tells you that you're ready to quit, with any kind of physical thing, you've only really done about 40% of what you're capable of. Like you can push yourself to keep going.
Yeah.
And that was probably right around the right ballpark for you, because right around 5 miles, you said to yourself, I'm pretty much spent.
Yeah.
And that was about halfway there. And you turned around and you did the whole thing over again. And you were ready at that 5 miles to just be done. And so it seems like that's pretty much spot on.
That is. Yeah,
unfortunately, you did push yourself to probably over 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got to imagine that the training that you went through in the Ranger Battalion and even on your deployments, working up to the deployments and all that kind of stuff was probably more intense than your typical soldier, typical infantryman, maybe even would have gone through as well. So having that kind of mindset to get you through all of that was probably a blessing to have.
Oh yeah, it was definitely a great, laid the foundation. Like being in battalion, I don't want to say it was easy, mm-hmm. but once you get there, it's like trying out for the all-star team is what it kind of felt like, right? The process of training and getting onto that team is the hardest part. And then now you're in with these great leaders and other people that have been doing it for a while, or you have other, your peers. They're all people that want to excel. They want to be the best. If you're the best at something, I want to be better than you. So everybody wants to be better, which just it's that competition that pushes you further and further and further. So I had some great leadership. I had great training, and my time in the military went by so fast. I mean, granted, it was only 4.5 years, but it was training cycle 6 months, deployment for 4 months, roughly 4 months. So training cycle, deployment. I did that 4 times, and then I'm out. So
right. And you deployed to Afghanistan or Iraq? Or
I went to Afghanistan 3 times and Iraq once.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's talk about your transition out of the military. So you've gone through this whole process. You've kind of toughened yourself mentally and probably physically as well. although I don't know, coming in as a football player, you're probably pretty tough as it was. But so talking about the transition. So when we talked a few weeks ago, you told me it was a pretty eventful transition. So what was your transition like, and what kind of went on in your case?
So, I mean, when I first got out, I felt like I needed a mental break. It was kind of like being on for 4.5 years, mentally on for 4.5 years. And getting out, what I was looking for was like, I just wanted to take a breather, kind of figure out what I wanted to do. Previously to the military, my background, I'd only done, I'd done odd jobs. I call them odd jobs because it's not your typical career path or anything of that nature. I've done security, and I was also a personal trainer. So getting out, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. After about a year, I decided I want to go back to doing personal training. And I think I was like 26 at that time. So I started back there, started getting my confidence back in there. And I'd spent my whole time in while I was in battalion too, is just writing workout programs. And I got to this kind of mindset where anybody that I would look at, everybody, like I would be writing their program, a 12-week program for that person in my head. Like, how would I write that person program? How would I do this? This, and I would do it for everybody that I'd come into contact with, even people that I'd see on the streets. I never even just say it out loud, but that's how I got, I'd say, why would I do this? I do, cover the 5 W's and say, like, who am I doing it for? What am I, what do I think their goals are? And so I got really good. I didn't get really good and kind of discover that. I discovered that, I guess, some point in the military where I started thinking that way, I guess. And that part transitioned really well into my training business. I went, I was full time. I had clients sticking with me for 3-4 years at a time, not because they weren't seeing results, but more so, they didn't want to leave my schedule because somebody else was going to be there to replace them. So that was fairly easy for me. I just knew that was something that I couldn't do forever. And I've never been a kind of salesman kind of guy. I've always been just let my performance show in whatever it is that I'm doing. So I was like, I need to go back to school. And prior to the military, I think I'd completed maybe like a year and change. And, like the BS courses that you take for your associates, where it's like, I don't know what I want to do, but you're just going to take every course,
Right.
And I decided to go with business. So I went back to school for my bachelor's in business. And then that's when I actually started liking different parts of business. So I was like, oh, I kind of like marketing. I've always liked numbers. I've been a math guy my whole life. So I was like, I could do accounting. I started thinking about what's more career based. And I started applying for different jobs, entry level. Couldn't get in anywhere, not even. And this is after I graduated. So with the bachelor's, it was like, no, sorry, you don't have any experience. So I was like, okay. I did that. And then I was like, well, and I was doing this while I was training still. And then I kind of decided that I needed a break from training. So I went back to school again for my master's in business. And I was like, okay, this is going to get me somewhere. And I put myself through the master's program in business administration. And guess what? No job, nothing
Still
came
no
out
job.
of it.
Wow.
Still. Yeah. So that's when I was kind of like, I had different thoughts about the education system and everything else. Like, and it's like, well, where do you find that experience if you're not able to go try it anywhere? You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's something I've been struggling with. I mean, that's been the whole thing since I graduated with my bachelor's in 2014 or 2015. And so that's when it started. So literally these last 6 years, I've been trying to find something else, more career oriented, that has like a longevity in what I'm able to do, building up sustainable income and everything else. And still, no luck. So that's been the hardest thing for me getting out. And basically what that led to, after seeing a little bit of it in 2016, I was going through a pretty rough time. And I was like, what do I feel is going to make me happy? Because I wasn't happy. I was working all the time. I was going to school full time. And then I kind of, I was so used to just putting one foot in front of the other and not really taking a step back to like reflect what I'm actually doing. And I was just basically, what it felt like to me was I was waking up and I was simply alive only to go to work, and it didn't really sit well with me, so I was like, what's going to make me happy, and that's when I was like, I want more time, I want more time with my kids. I want to be able to see all my buddies that, that I used to be in battalion with, or, that were in the military with me. And when I actually took a step back to kind of reflect on that, like, well, am I doing all this right now? And the answer was definitely no,
Right. Yeah.
The time I was spending with my kids it wasn't quality time. I was so tired all the time that it's like, okay, let's go do something on the weekend. And I would just be like, oh, I'm so tired from, I'm burned out. The week burned me out. So I started a company, American Savage. And the initial idea was like, I want to do something fun where I can have the whole family involved and we can go around, call it like a vacation. And it's like, how am I going to make that work? So, well, really, that was the foundation of that. Like, how am I going to, it was answering two questions. How can I spend more quality time with my kids? And how can I go see my friends that I don't get to see anymore? So that's when I come up with the concept for American Savage, which, for lack of better terms, I called it, it was going to be the traveling circus. I was going to create my own obstacle course, but I was going to go bouncing around. And then, my thought, I'd be running into my buddies, a couple times a year at least, or even once a year. Cause where I was at that point is, seeing them every 5 years, or some I haven't even seen since I've been out. So that's something
so it would be kind of like kind of like the Spartan type races. Is that kind of like what your goal was?
I've done a couple Spartans. I enjoyed them. I just left wanting more.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think with my background, what I was able to do, or what my thought was like, well, how can I lead? How can I do something that along these lines, seeing the competition and the amount of people that fly across the world to go do these Spartan races? How can I make mine that's going to make people want to show up to mine? Right. So I built it around, the idea, right, was I was building it around four different aspects. So there was an individual performance, which would have been first. So you think like the whole Spartan is pretty much an individual performance. There was an individual performance. I was going to have and what I call adapting to stress. So what I'd set up was, which, right, nobody really understands what that means until you get thrown into it. So
right,
how I was going to do that is I was going to work with a local, a well-known airsoft company. So they were going to be setting up targets, shooting and moving. You have to hit this target X amount of times, or, you have to have a tight group after you're already spent, blown, yep. You're out of breath. You're trying to focus and shoot. And it's basically, going from a chaotic environment to slowing yourself down. And to be able to teach people that, because that's something that, people, oh, it's super cool. But what they don't really understand what's happening is you're forcing your body to adapt to stress, which shows you that you can. So any stressful situation you encounter, you can definitely endure it and overcome it. It's that just shows you right there, anybody can do it. And then the second half of it, I wanted to have a medical portion involved too, just like some kind of, we had RFR when I was in, I don't know if it's the same thing, Ranger First Responder. And it's just, I wanted to teach simple things like, how to properly apply a tourniquet, how to package and how to clean and package a wound or whatever, have some dummies set up, squirting the fake blood out. And, not until you do it right can you move on. So it's still like a competition. It can be time-based, all of this, but you're also you're learning something while you're under an amount of stress. you're going to remember that forever.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And then, and that's what I feel, like, not to, I'll go back, and that was like one of the biggest things in the military. I learned that, how to be calm during the chaos. And that's, slow is smooth, smooth is fast, where you think you're going slow motion, but in reality, you're efficient and you're doing it with the right mindset. So it was a way of forcing people into doing that by just saying, hey, come and do this obstacle course, where they have no idea what's happening to them. But it was a lot, there's a lot of the psychological aspects involved with it too. And then to end with it, the fourth and final piece, which is one of the most, which I feel is the most important. And, that kind of goes in with, what I'm all about is, you can do a lot, and you can do a lot of good stuff on your own, but you're always going to be able to do more with the right people. And the right people, they're going to vary for everybody. But, when we talk for the majority of us, it's our family, it's the people, or the people we live with, obviously, our close friends. And so to go through something like that, it simulates the chaotic environment, which shows that you can do it better as a team. So that's why I was going to have it end with like a teamwork piece where you finish as a team. So, it kind of, you go through it initially on your own, and you're like, man, this sucks. And then you're trying to adapt, you're trying to control your breathing, and then you got to learn something. And then you finish as a team, where you're going to leave that day being, you're going to know something you didn't know. You're going to know stuff about yourself. That's what the biggest piece is. It brings about self-awareness. So that was like the whole psychological aspect behind it, because anybody could do a workout, and, you can half-ass it. I could throw a workout up, and I've seen people half-ass it. And even with the Spartan Race, you see people, they go and they'll walk it. They're not pushing themselves to an extent, and they might be going at their full capacity, but this just adds different dimensions to it, which I feel like it just encompasses better in a more well-rounded way.
Yeah, that sounds like kind of the ultimate kind of race, where not only is it a physical thing, but it's also mental, and you have to really have control over kind of all aspects of yourself in order to do well at this. Now, from what I understand, the COVID situation that we all thrust into last year kind of put these plans, kind of on the back burner a little bit. Is that right?
Oh yeah. It basically blew it up, initially. That's what I had started, and that's what I had been building. Basically I took that vision, and I said, before I even started, because I didn't want to start anything half-assed, I wanted it to be perfect as could be. Right. Mm-hmm. So I worked backwards, and everything was lining up. Everything had lined up to go and take off last year. I was going to hold 2 events last year. And luckily, there wasn't any money exchange or any kind of big things like that, but the planning and stuff was in motion. 2 different venues were in place, and then COVID hit and everything gone. Yeah. So I was just like, that was hard, because, the first, I would say probably 6 months, I was just like, I don't even know what to do. I feel like I just wasted the last 4 years of my life. Like, I'm too old to be doing this. Like, what am I doing? What did I'm setting myself back. I'm setting my kids back. Like, I couldn't help but think all that,
Right.
And then, just trying to bounce back out of it and reinvent the wheel over here. That's kind of, I joke about it and say it that way, but, it took me a lot longer than I'd like to admit to kind of take the step back that I've been talking about, and take that tactical pause and assess everything. Mm-hmm. And to really see, was it a complete and total failure? Definitely not, that's in the back pocket. So in the event that everything starts opening up again, then we can start doing stuff like that.
Right.
But I learned a lot. Again, everything's a learning. I learned to look at it in a different way. It's not just, it wasn't a complete loss. This isn't the end of my life. Obviously, there's other things I can do, and just luckily I'm pretty creative. So I was blessed with a creative imagination. So being able to being able to come up with some other things and everything else to move forward has been good.
Yeah. And having that resilient mindset too, that, probably from your time in the military helped you be in that mindset so that, when, some adverse situation like COVID, took place, you didn't just throw in the towel and say, well, screw it. I can't do this.
Yeah.
So, or, that it's the end of the world or, whatever the case may be. So, I think your mindset there really helped you kind of overcome that and not just throw in the towel.
Yeah.
And so how, like a lot of other businesses, it kind of forced you to pivot. So what are some of the things that you've been working on since then?
So after my sad pity party for about 6 months, that's what I call it. I mean, that's literally what it was. I was just like, oh my God, I don't want to do anything, and, after feeling sorry for myself, I kind of just had to have that look in the mirror, that talk with myself, like, don't bitch out on this. This is your livelihood. You don't have time to waste. You're doing this because you value your time. So why are you wasting it? I had to have that conversation, like that internal conversation, and squash all that out of me. Like, okay, let's go and attack the day now, and let's start figuring something else out. So that word resilient, it's that word means it's a lot to me, because exactly what you said, it's that mindset, right? And I think for me, I had that since I was younger. I was always a kid that, somebody playing sports, like, oh, you're not good at this. Like, it didn't make me like, oh, I don't want to go back to practice. Like, I would go home and I would practice on that until I could come back and be like, oh, I'm better than you now. Like,
right.
That's always been my mindset. It was never like, oh, I'm not good at something, I'm just going to shy away from it. And like, I don't want to be embarrassed or anything like that. It was like, okay, I'm going to come back and I'm going to work on it, and I'm going to get better. And, the military just pretty much enhanced that for me. So it just, it let me, I allowed to, that's the ultimate resilience, I guess, like what I kind of went through in terms of, being hospitalized and wanting to med chapter me out of the Army, to just saying no. That was the easy way out. I could have taken that way out, and I chose not to. So going back to fight, that's always just going to be, my spirit. Right. So, I've been working on a project it's called Project Resilience. So what it is I'm working now, on, creating a program for veterans where, it's basically, I call it's a 2-step program. So what it does is it ties, something that you can do every day, right? Because a lot of the companies that I've seen, like the nonprofits and stuff, there's a lot that are doing great work, and they have all the great work, and they're doing, they're hosting events every couple of months, and they're doing all this stuff, but there's a lot of time in between, right? That you can be doing something. So what I'm working on is, getting veterans free personal training, which I would be doing the programming for them. And, alongside that, getting them free therapy. So awesome. With those two together, I feel like there's no way that you can come out of that in a worse state than you might already be, and a lot of people don't really think they need therapy. I was one of those people. Mm-hmm. And, you don't know where to start. I mean, if you know, I don't even want to call it something's wrong with me, but I want to talk to somebody about this. I can't talk to my wife. I can't talk to anybody else. They don't understand, or whatever the reasoning might be that you have. It'll vary between every individual, but what I was trying to do is, or what I'm trying to do is be able to locate a solid therapist for people in every state. And in the event that I can't do that, we get, any issues or questions or concerns that you might have and want the answers to, we get those over to a specialist in that area, and they provide a video that's not directly towards you, but it's a general. So you can, we can put it up on a website, and it's, anybody can go to it and say, how many of us that are going through very similar stuff or have gone through the same stuff. And, we go, oh man, that sounds just like me. Oh,
Yeah.
that sounds exactly like me. I've gone through that, or I'm going through that. So to have that to have that for other people to see, it's not going to just reach that one individual. I think overall it's going to be able to reach thousands of people, and it can happen like this,
Mm-hmm.
So right now in the works of actually getting it up and running. I've been training a few guys for free for, the better part of the last year anyway. That's something that makes me feel good. And because of the support that I've gotten through my company, I'm able to do that, so I'm able to not have to take away from that to go work a job I don't want to work. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep. And that's kind of the ultimate freedom, like what you're saying, that you can kind of do the things that you want to do that make you feel, the way you want to feel, have time with your kids, get to do things that are enjoyable and meaningful to you, and ultimately get to help people along the way. And
Exactly.
I think that's really a great thing that you're doing for these veterans. Christian, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. Where can people go to either get in touch with you and to find out more about American Savage?
You can go to my website. It's americansavage.co. My Instagram is pretty much the same thing, american.savage.inc. And, in the near future, just definitely be looking for some of these big sponsors that we've got lined up. I'm working with some great people. And like I said, we've got some pretty well-known big name sponsors that want to be a part of this as well too. So, which is great. It's just going to help the reach of people that we can get this out to, so it's coming soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining me. Really, really enjoyed it. And, I'm looking forward to what you have coming up in the future.
Oh, thank you, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Drive On Podcast. If you want to check out more episodes or learn more about the show, you can visit our website, driveonpodcast.com. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Drive On Podcast.